He sat across from me in the exam room. Mid-60s, retired high school principal, a man used to order reason and control. But that day, his voice was low, almost reluctant. "Doc," he said, "I've been taking care of myself, but I don't feel right anymore. I'm tired, distant, and honestly a little ashamed. I don't even know why." He was quiet for a moment, then looked up. "I think it's the way I've been handling things alone." Now, most men wouldn't say it like that. They'd talk around it, use humor, or say nothing at all. But I've been a men's health doctor for over 4 decades, and I've learned to hear what's underneath the words. That was his way of saying I've been relying on masturbation and I don't know if it's helping or hurting me anymore. And if that hits close to home, if it sounds like something you've felt but haven't said out loud, you're not alone. I'm Dr. Thomas Leighton. I've listened to retired soldiers, factory workers who gave their lives to labor, and grandfathers who once felt strong but now feel unsure. Many of them carry the same quiet confusion, because somewhere along the way, no one told us how to navigate this part of aging, especially not the private, intimate part, the part that still needs touch connection and release. So if this message speaks to you, type 1. If it doesn't, type 0. Either way, thank you for staying with me. Let's begin with a truth I wish more men knew. Your body after 60 isn't broken, but it is changing. And those changes affect more than your energy. They shape your desire, your erections, your emotions, even your sense of self. Testosterone, the hormone that once fueled your fire, begins to decline, not suddenly, but slowly, like a dimmer switch, turning down the light in a room you didn't realize was fading. You might not notice it at first, but one day it becomes harder to get aroused. The urgency fades, the edge softens, and you wonder quietly, is this just me now? The truth is, it's not weakness, it's biology. It's your body adapting. But adaptation doesn't mean surrender. It means listening, adjusting, supporting yourself differently than before. And here's the part no one ever says out loud. Your penis, the tissue, the nerves, the vessels that support your erections, depends on healthy blood flow. It needs oxygen, muscle tone, stimulation. And like any muscle, when it's ignored or misused, it begins to weaken. That's why, for some men, masturbation can be helpful. Not shameful, helpful. It keeps blood flowing, supports the tissue, and maintains function. But only when practiced mindfully. That word mindfully matters more than most men realize, because the danger isn't in the act, it's in the habit. It's what happens when it becomes something you don't think about. I've had men tell me, "Doc, I didn't even notice it happening. One day it just became routine, like brushing my teeth. Something I did to sleep, to avoid stress, to pass the time." And that's where we cross a quiet line, not into immorality, but into imbalance. You see, your nervous system is a finely tuned machine. When stimulated over and over again without rest, it starts to dull. The dopamine, your brain's reward signal, crashes, and the pleasure that once felt alive now feels muted. I remember one patient in particular, early 70s, former military. He said, "It's like I'm chasing something that's not there anymore. The feeling doesn't land like it used to, and afterward I just feel empty." He thought he was broken. He wasn't. He was just caught in a pattern that so many older men fall into, using pleasure as a substitute for connection, or worse, as a way to escape discomfort they don't know how to face. Let me pause here and offer something practical, something you can quietly try starting today. If this message feels familiar, if your relationship with self-pleasure has shifted from fulfilling to depleting, try changing the way you approach it. Research published in the Journal of Sexual Medicine and supported by Harvard Health has shown that slowing down using natural oils and incorporating deep breathing can help restore nerve sensitivity and bring back a sense of presence to the experience. It's not just about the act, it's about how you show up for it. Try it just once. No distractions, no rush. See what you feel, not just in your body, but in your mind afterward. You may be surprised. Now, I'm not saying that masturbation is wrong. I'm saying it has a purpose, and when that purpose is distorted, when it becomes a reflex instead of a choice, it can start to chip away at the very things it was meant to support. I've seen it affect men's motivation, their moods, even their relationships, not because of shame, but because of isolation. What begins as a private moment of release can quietly evolve into something that replaces connection with people, with life. And that's the heartbreak. Men stop reaching out to friends, they skip the walk, they cancel lunch. Not because they don't care, but because the inner spark is dimming and they don't know how to light it again. So, let me offer this. If you've noticed your energy slipping, if your interest in intimacy has shifted, if you've been turning inward, not for reflection, but for escape, that may be your body's way of asking for a different kind of attention. Not more, not less, just different. And in the next part of this message, we'll talk about what that attention looks like. How the nervous system, the pelvic floor, and even your emotions all intersect in ways you've probably never heard from your doctor. But you'll hear it here from one man to another. Thank you for staying with me. Let's continue where we left off with the part most doctors never talk about, but every older man deserves to understand. Your body's capacity for pleasure doesn't just rely on blood flow or hormones, it also depends on muscle tone, particularly in places you may not have considered. Deep in your lower pelvis, there's a web of muscle called the pelvic floor. It's the foundation of your bladder control, your erections, and the firmness you feel during arousal. When this area weakens, whether from sitting too much poor posture or even rushed repetitive self-stimulation, things start to change. I've had men tell me, "Doc, I didn't change anything. But something's off. It takes longer. It's not as strong. It's harder to finish." And they say it with this puzzled frustration, as if their body quietly moved on without telling them. But it's not betrayal, it's biology. When the nervous system is overstimulated, especially through high-speed, high-intensity masturbation or with frequent pornography, your nerve endings begin to dull. Over time, it takes more friction, more pressure, or more stimulation just to feel what you used to feel naturally. It's like driving a car with the radio turned up so loud that you forget how to hear silence. You may not notice it right away, but one day you do. And often it doesn't feel like a physical problem. It feels emotional. I remember a man named Charles, 68, recently widowed proud grandfather. He came in not for a medical exam, but because, as he put it, something doesn't sit right anymore. He wasn't in pain, but he felt dull, numb, out of sync with himself. When we talked more deeply, it turned out he'd been using masturbation not for pleasure but as a way to feel something, to fight off the silence of the house, the absence of touch, the ache of grief he didn't know how to name. He said, "Doc, it was the only thing that gave me relief, but after I'd feel even more hollow." What he was describing wasn't addiction, it was anesthesia. This is something I want to say gently because it's easy to misinterpret. When masturbation becomes a way to numb rather than connect, it can actually deepen your loneliness. Not because you're doing something shameful, but because you're turning inward at a time when your body may be asking for something else: conversation, movement, fresh air, even silence that doesn't feel empty. It sneaks up on you. One skipped outing, one phone call you don't return, one more night alone with a screen instead of reaching out. And slowly your world starts to shrink. That's why, for some men, the issue isn't the physical act, it's the emotional toll. A cycle begins, stress leads to stimulation, which leads to a short-lived release. Then comes the crash, the tiredness, the brain fog, the subtle guilt that hangs in the air afterward even if you can't quite explain it. But if any of this feels familiar, I want you to hear something clearly. You're not broken, you're not too old, and you're not alone. Your body is speaking to you, and it's asking for balance. You see, we often think of self-pleasure as all or nothing. Either it's a bad habit to quit, or it's a natural right to protect. But I've come to believe the truth lies somewhere softer, somewhere wiser. The key is intention, not performance, not escape, but presence. That's why when a patient like Charles comes to me, I don't tell him to stop. I invite him to change how he engages with himself. That might mean setting aside the screen. It might mean slowing down. It might even mean doing nothing for a few days just to listen. Here's something you might quietly try if you're open. For the next 3 days, give yourself permission to pause. No self-stimulation, no pressure, just observe. Notice your mood, your focus, how you sleep. Write it down if it helps. This isn't punishment, it's presence. And then if and when you return to the act, do it differently. Use natural oil, coconut, almond, whatever feels right. Lie down flat or stand. Don't hunch, don't rush. Breathe deeply. Imagine this isn't about release. It's about returning to sensation. Harvard Health and the Cleveland Clinic both point to the role of breath posture and slower arousal in restoring pelvic health and even rebuilding nerve sensitivity. This isn't fringe theory. It's biology rediscovered. And it works, because what's often missing for men after 60 isn't desire, it's presence. We've been taught to push, to conquer, to perform, but this season of life asks us to listen, to feel again, not just finish. One man told me, "Doc, I tried what you said. I slowed down. No porn, just me, some oil and quiet. And something shifted. I didn't just feel better down there, I felt like me again." That's the part I wish every man knew. The body remembers, and it forgives. You don't have to go back to who you were at 30. You just have to come back to who you are now. And when you do, your body shows up for you in ways you thought were gone for good. If you're finding this helpful, or you're just starting to think differently about your health after 60, consider hitting the subscribe button. That way, you won't miss future insights made just for men like you. Because we're not done yet. In the next part of this story, we'll talk about how to reclaim balance, not just for a moment, but for a lifetime. I'll walk you through a 7-day process I've quietly used with older men for years. A rhythm to help your body reset your mind, refocus, and your sense of connection deepen one quiet step at a time. We're not aiming for perfection. We're aiming for peace. When a man returns to himself, not in a rush, not with guilt, but with care, what begins to change isn't just physical. It's in his voice. It's in the way he breathes when he walks. It's in how he carries himself, not to impress, but to belong again, in his own skin. That's the part most people don't see when we talk about aging and sexuality. They see performance, we see presence. And presence for a man over 60 is the very thing that restores confidence, circulation, and connection all at once. That's why I often walk older men through what I call a quiet reset. A week, just 7 days, where you shift how you relate to your body, your habits, and your emotional rhythms. It's not a restriction, it's a return. We begin with stillness. For the first 2 days, no stimulation, no screens, no pressure. Just notice. Watch how your body feels when it's not chasing release. Let your nervous system take a breath. Write down what comes up, not just urges, but emotions. Do you feel anxious, bored, tired? This isn't about willpower, it's about insight. Most men have gone decades without pausing to ask, what do I actually need right now? Then, on days 3 and 4, reintroduce touch slowly, intentionally. Use a natural oil like coconut or almond. Lie down flat or stand tall. Avoid sitting hunched or rushed. And above all, breathe. This part matters more than most men realize. Deep breathing isn't just calming, it improves circulation, regulates the nervous system, and even supports testosterone. The Mayo Clinic and NIH both affirm its role in stress reduction and hormonal balance. So, as you move, let your breath guide you, not your urgency. What you're doing is retraining the brain to reattach pleasure to presence, not performance. On days 5 and 6, when the urge to retreat returns, try connection instead. Call someone, take a walk, laugh with your granddaughter. Let your nervous system learn that there are other ways to feel alive, ways that give back, not drain. And by day 7, take stock, not just of how your body responded, but your mood, your sleep, your focus. Did you feel more centered, more steady, even 5% better? If so, that's your body saying thank you. If not, that's okay too. It means your awareness is waking up. Healing rarely arrives as fireworks. It comes more like morning light, slow, steady, unnoticed, until suddenly everything is clearer. But let's not pretend this is only about the body. For many older men, what's really at stake isn't just firmness or arousal, it's dignity. When you feel like your body is slipping away, when arousal takes longer climax, feels weaker, and connection feels out of reach, it can chip away at your sense of self. And the world doesn't always give you space to talk about that. You're told to laugh it off, or take a pill, or quietly accept decline. But I've sat with enough men to know this: the pain isn't in the problem, it's in the silence. That's why these small changes matter. Because every time you show up for your body, you're breaking that silence. You're reminding yourself that you still care, that you still matter, that you still have the power to feel good, to feel grounded, to feel you. I remember a patient, Ray, 73, former auto mechanic, no stranger to hard work or hard times. He'd been relying on masturbation daily, sometimes more than once, not because he felt desire, but because it had become the only familiar rhythm in his day. He told me, "Doc, I didn't even enjoy it anymore. I just did it, like brushing my teeth, but lonelier." We walked through the 7-day reset. He was hesitant, even a little skeptical, but he gave it a try. At the end of the week, he came back. His words were simple. "I didn't realize how numb I was until I started to feel again." He wasn't talking about sex. He was talking about mornings, about clarity, about sitting in his kitchen and noticing the sunlight again. That's the power of intention. You see, this journey, this quiet return, isn't about denying pleasure, it's about elevating it. Because real intimacy, real arousal, real energy, they don't live in speed, they live in awareness. And when a man learns to slow down, breathe deeper, and feel again, even alone, it often spills over into every part of his life. His patience grows, his humor returns, his body responds more willingly. And sometimes his partner notices too. Not because he's doing more, but because he's there emotionally, physically, spiritually. That's why I always say you don't need to become a new man. You just need to come back to the man you already are underneath the noise, the habits, the distractions. And now that you've taken this first step, you're already on that path. So let me leave you with this. You are not broken. You are not past your prime. And you are not the only one. What you've been feeling, the flatness, the frustration, the quiet shame, is not weakness. It's a signal. A message from your body saying, "I want to feel alive again." And now you have a map. You know the way. It begins with stillness. It continues with breath. It deepens with connection. And it grows with consistency. If this message touched you, perhaps share it quietly as it was shared with you. Not with a speech, not with a headline, but maybe over coffee, or in a phone call with an old friend, or even just in the way you treat yourself tomorrow morning with a little more grace. And if you'd like more reflections like this, more honest, grounded, soulful conversations about what it means to be a man after 60, consider subscribing. Not because you owe me anything, but because your journey deserves to be witnessed. You are not alone in this. You never were. And I'm honored to walk beside you.